Hi, my name is Ebenezer Safodu. I'm a business strategy consultant and a data specialist. Welcome to my YouTube channel. If you've been following, we've been doing the free tutorials on Power BI. I hope you've learned a lot in the last training session. Today we are going to continue. The last one, we actually did some small visualizations, um, introduced you to the BI itself. But before that, I am taking you through some techniques that are needed for a data scientist. Today we are going to look at, so we went through all this. Today we are going to look at data transformation. One key thing about data science or data analysis is that you should know that the data that comes will not necessarily be fit for use by the software you may be using. Whichever software you may be using, you would have to transform the data to be fit for purpose. If you learned from the CRISP-DM methodology that I talked about data preparation. Majority of the time, that is where data analysts or scientists spend their time in preparing the data, because the data would not be in its best form that you want. There may be missing data, there may be other issues with the data. Even if the data is of quality, you would have to transform it to suit the software or the application you may be using. So we may be going through a lot of the data transformation techniques, especially in Power BI, since that's what we are learning. So I'll go straight into the Power BI. So the last time, I think this was what we were doing. This was, we actually made a small report on the total sales by the company that we were looking at. So today, like I said, we're going to look more on the data transformation. Power BI has two main parts. One is the query editor and the Power BI itself. The query editor is the transformation tool for Power BI. It has its own language. The query editor uses what we call an M language, and the Power BI uses the DAX. So you'll be hearing M and DAX in subsequent videos. So we are going to do some data transformation. To do that, I'm going to create a new page. So in the new page, just this plus button here, down here. So page 1 was what we did. So page 2. And I'm going to bring in a new data source, because the last time I told you that never should you load a data without transforming. We did not do that. So I'm going to bring a new data source. This time, let's probably work with a different data set. The last time we used a financial data set by Microsoft, the free sample that they had given. Today we are going to use COVID data. So we are going to somehow create a COVID dashboard. So to do that, John Hopkins has a very nice data on COVID for all countries. So just type in Google COVID CSSE, then you see one from github.com. GitHub is a place where data or data is stored. Mostly all data scientists use GitHub to it's a repository for your data. So that is where you store your data, even some codes and all that. So John Hopkins has stored its data in GitHub. So we are going to use, they have the whole world's data, they update it daily. So you go to, after you click on it, let me go back so as those who did not get it. So we have CSSE, COVID CSSE. You come to CSSE COVID-19, and then you look at daily reports. This is daily reports, daily report US, and this is CSSE COVID-19 time series. We are going to look at the time series data, that is over a period of time. When you click on that, you come here and you see time series confirmed global. This is the confirmed cases global. So that's what we are going to import into our BI. So what we are going to do, the last time it was like an Excel sheet was brought into BI. Now we are going to bring in what you a web URL into BI. So in BI, like I said the last time, almost all data sets can be connected to it, irrespective of the data set that you use. It could be SQL, Salesforce, what have you, any data set you can think about. So once you click on the COVID-19 confirmed global, this is the global report on COVID-19. To be able to bring the data into the BI, we have to click on the raw. You get something like this. Don't be too scared. It is not, it is still the data. It's just the raw CSV file. It's a data coded in a certain way. We'll bring it into the Power BI. So now you copy. Maybe let me go back again for those who could not get it. So you type COVID CSSE, you get a GitHub link, then you come to CSSE COVID data, then you go to the CSSE COVID-19 time series, then you go to the confirmed global. So once you get the confirmed global, you see it from first, that's January 22nd, then you go to raw, you get this, you copy the link, copy this link, we go into the Power BI, we go to get data. That's where I told you get the data. This time the data source is web. The last time the data source was Excel, even we had it from the Microsoft system itself. So there are different data sources. You can pull, like you could see a data in a certain website and you want to bring to Power BI. You can go there, maybe there's a table in a website you want to use. You can go there, copy the URL, and then bring it in here. Alright, so you paste it here. I've used the website before, so I may not get the notification you get. It will ask for some anonymous when you are using, because it might be your first time using this link. So I will just click OK and go straight. It will be connecting to it. Alright, so now we have our data in our BI. Alright, so this is the data that we saw there. So we are going to click on transform. The last time I told you that we did load, which was not the right thing to do, because I just wanted to show you the first. I wanted us to go straight to the visualization. So now we are into the query editor. When you click transform, you see Power BI Training Day 1, Power Query Editor. So this is where we transform the data. Let me maximize it. So this is where the data transformation is done. Every data set you would have to transform in a certain way, because data never comes prepared enough. So we brought in the COVID-19 global, confirmed global. This is the confirmed cases globally. Now the old one that we had was the financial, so it's still there. So two queries, the financial and the COVID-19 confirmed cases global. So we are going to do some form of transformation. So this is all the tabs for transformation in the query editor. There's home, there's transform, there's add column, there's view. The reason why you see these things from mine is because the view, I've checked these ones. So maybe yours, you would not see those graphs. So you go to view, you see column quality. It shows you the validity, errors, and the empty columns, or the empty rows in a column. Then I always check the column distribution. So that shows you the distribution in the column. It's also important. It helps you see how your data set is. If you like, you can add a column profile. I'll not advise it because sometimes it becomes cumbersome using it. But it tells you, the column profile tells you the count, the distinct count, the unique values, the empty strings, the minimum and the max. It tells you the averages. It just clearly gives you a summary of how a column is, but I'll uncheck it for this. And also check the formula bar. The formula bar is up here, so as you see the transformations that you are doing. Alright, so let's go back to home. I'm taking my time so as to help you follow. Then, so when you come to the home, the first thing is close and apply. When close and apply means we are loading this query into the BI. So for instance, the financial has been loaded into the Power BI, but the time series is just in the query editor. We are doing our transformation now. So when we are done with the transformation, we'll load it into the BI and model. So this is new source. So you can actually come to the query editor and bring in a new source. Maybe you want to bring additional data set or an additional query. We can also do that here. Then there is recent sources. That's the recent sources that you've used. So for mine, you see that the raw GitHub, I've been doing a lot of analysis. So my recent sources are a lot. Then there is enter data. So just like those who are familiar with Excel, sometimes you can enter data in Excel. So in Power BI too, you can actually enter data raw instead of bringing in a data. So when you click enter data, you get this pop up. So your column name may be called date. So this is manually entering data into the BI. So maybe 23rd 11 2020, 24th 11 2020. So you can manually also enter your data in Power BI. Then the name of the table would be here. Maybe let me call it date. This is just for demonstration purposes. Then I do OK. Once I do OK, it will come here. So I have a third query. So I have financial, I have my time series from the COVID data set, and there's date, which is what I just entered. If let's say I made an error and I want to correct it, I'll just come here. You see the apply steps. Everything that you do here is being recorded in the steps that you are taking. So we moved it from source, we change the type. So now let's go to settings. Sorry. Alright. So once you click on the source, you'll be able to edit again and add maybe 25th 11 2020. So that's how you enter data. If you want another column, you just click on here, maybe sales 10 20. All right, so that's for the enter data. All right, so that is the data entry for the Power BI. So the next thing is data source settings. So for instance, when we go here, we'll see where the data sources are. Sometimes you may be working on a Power BI file and you may change the location of the file. So maybe the data source is an Excel sheet, it was in document, and you move it to downloads. You have to come to the data source settings and change it. So you come here, you do change source. So as you change the source of the data set, otherwise it will not be able to know which source, because it is sourcing it from a particular area and you've changed the source. So sometimes when you change your source, you need to come to the data source settings and change the data. All right, so there is manage parameter. This one I would talk about it maybe in some videos later on. It's normally used for companies that are having maybe let's say your company's sales is in different countries and you want those in Ghana to see only Ghana data, you want those in US to see only US data. Use manage parameters to create parameters, and therefore if a person logs in based on the settings you've given, the person can only see what you've actually allowed the person to see. Then there is refresh all. So when you change, let's say you have an Excel sheet connected to the data and you actually enter new data sets into the Excel sheet, or even let's say the COVID-19 data we brought from the GitHub. Maybe the following day they've updated it. All that you need to do is to come here and do refresh all. Later, I'll show you how to do automatic refreshes. So that's what refresh all is to refresh the data set when there is new data introduced. All right, and there is properties. That's the properties of the query. If I choose this, the properties of this query. Yes, you can make a description so as if another person is using the data, he would be able to understand what you've done. There's advanced editor, so that's why Power BI is very easy to use. So ideally we would have been writing these codes, but Microsoft has made it easier for us, so we don't need to write all these codes. All that we do is to be clicking, and these codes are written on our behalf. So for instance, the data that we went to source, would have written source equals CSV document web. So this is the location and a whole lot. So these are the columns. The columns are 340 and coding is 65001. So this advanced editor for this particular data set, what our advice is that remove these limitations on the columns. So remove from columns is equal to 340 and the last comma behind it, remove it. Yes, so as it is not limited. If you do it columns equals 340, anytime new data set is brought and is beyond the 340 columns, you will not get it. So let me do done. So that is for the advanced editor. Then let's see manage. So you can delete the query, or you can reference it or duplicate it. So I can duplicate this query. Let me just do that and see. So you duplicate it. So after duplicating, let me now use delete. Yes, I want to delete it. Alright, so now it's been deleted. Okay, so the next one is choose columns. Go to a column, choose a particular column. So what column you want to go to is what you choose. So let's say go to column 10. It will just go to column 10. That's all. Basically that's what I choose. And there's choose column, so you can also choose a particular column that you want to select. Alright, let me go back to mine. Alright, there's remove columns. So maybe I want to remove this column 1. So all I do is remove column, remove. So there's remove columns and remove other columns. So if I select this and I click remove columns, I'm just removing this particular column. So the column 1 has been removed. If you realize, column 1 has been removed. The beauty of it is that there is this part called apply steps. So everything I'm doing here is being recorded here. I can easily cancel what I just did and it will come back. So that's column 1. So there is remove other columns. So remove other columns. It means that apart from the selected columns, other columns will be removed. So I just have only column 1. So that's the remove columns and remove other columns. Alright, there is keep rows. So keep top rows. It means that only the top rows would be kept. I can say maybe keep top 10 rows. So that means only top 10 rows will be kept. All the other rows will be deleted. That's depending on what you want to do. So there is keep range of rows. You can also do that. You can tell the ranges and what you want to be kept. Then there is remove rows. So you can remove probably the top row, you can remove bottom row, alternate rows. So all these are transformational tools that helps you to transform your data. There is sort ascending or descending depending on. There is split column. This split column is very useful. So for instance, sometimes you may get a data set and you have USD 10, so $10, but you don't need a dollar sign in part of your transformation. So what you can do is to come to split column, maybe tell it that it should split based on the. So let's try one. It's not so effective, but for the sake of tutorials, let's say split column based on number of characters. So for instance, this particular data set where the countries are, I'm asking it to split maybe based on the first three characters. So after first three characters, it will split. There is split once as far as left possible, once as far as right possible. I think it's explanatory. So it means that it will start from the left and count three characters and split. This one will start from right, count three characters and split. If you do split repeatedly, every three characters it will split. I would always advise not to use the repeatedly. Normally you only want to split from as far left or as far right. So let's do one and see what happens to my countries. So you see AFG and Afghanistan is there. So sometimes you may get data sets that are together and you want to separate them. So that is one thing that you can do with the split. Let me cancel it so as I can apply steps. Let me remove this. Alright, there is group by. I'll teach that later. Groupings would be my third video or segmented, either third or the fourth video. So now one key thing is whenever you get a data set, my recommendation is always that make sure that you check the data type for every column that you have. Check the data type. So that's where we are now. Data type is test. So you go to column 2, data type is test, column 3. You see we have latitude and longitude by saying this is test. So ideally we would want to change it, but let's wait. There's a problem with how the data that we got from the CSS, the GitHub data, it has column 1 here, yet province, country, latitude are in the rows. So what we need to do is that use first row as header so as it will change the first rows. So you see now my column has changed to province, country, latitude, longitude, and the dates follow. So that's the date for you. All right. So that is the use first row as headers. And there is replace values. So for instance, maybe you made a mistake or you've seen something you want to replace by something. Maybe I want to replace Afghanistan by Af. So you can just do simple replace value. So you say find maybe, normally I advise that to do replace value, always come to the actual data set, what you want to replace, right click and do replace values. But that one is easy. It would always pick the actual spelling. Maybe you may spell it wrongly. So let's do maybe replace with AFG. Do OK. So you see Afghan has been replaced with AFG, but that's not. Let me just cancel it back. So that's for the replace values. Merge and append queries, one of my favorite. So we can merge and append queries. So merging is, let me probably use this example. When you want to merge a query, you have one data set and another data set, but for instance one data set is inside the other data set. What am I referring to? So you have, let's say we have this COVID data and we have another data set. This COVID data had confirmed global. Then maybe we have another set that has deaths. So the dates and the countries and the latitude and the longitude can be merged onto the death data set, so that you have the same data set but deaths by it. So that is how the confirmed the merge queries is. Merge queries is more of those who are into database. It's a union, but it's a special union where you combine maybe a certain column which is not in the original data but they are related. So for instance, you have a data set that has name, let's say name of a group of people in a class. So it has the name, it has the index number, it has their first name and last name. Then you have another data set which has, let's say, the person's index number and the person's score in the class. So you may want to combine maybe the person's first name and the person's last name, which is on a different data set, onto the data that has only index number and the score. So that is what merge is. Maybe we'll try one, but first let me go to append, because append is easier. Append is just adding one data set onto the other when they have the same columns. So if you have the same columns, append is the best way to actually join two data sets. So you have one data, for instance, you have data sets maybe January and February. So they are in different sheets. Let's say it's an Excel sheet. So sheet 1 is January, sheet 2 is February. You can append. In Excel, you would have just go and copy and paste one under it. You can easily append. Let me try the append for you. So I've intentionally copied the financial sample that we are using. One is January, and I just created one as February. You can intentionally we are just doing this for demonstration purpose. And maybe one is March. It could be even data set, let's say, from different countries, but they have the same columns. So this is January, February, March. So I will just go to my BI, go to new source, Excel. It's in downloads. I'll bring my financial sample. So I'm bringing in new data sets. So I have January and February. I think I did not save, so the March did not come. But I'll send you the file. So you have January and February. I'm bringing in January and February. I click OK. Because we are in the query editor, transform will not come, because it will come straight into the query editor. So January and February. So it's just the same columns. You see the same columns. So it's just January and February. So you could have data set from different countries in different sheets, but they have the same columns. All that you do is to do append. In append, there is append queries. If I do append queries, it would append maybe January onto February, but I want to do append as new, so as I have a new data set altogether. So these are just two tables. If you have three or more, you can use the three or more tables. So I'm appending table 1 is January and table 2 is February. So I'm appending January and February together. So that I have it. So January and February has been appended onto each other. So that is append for you. Normally when you are loading appended data, because this is already in this, you right click on the January and click on the enable loading, so as it doesn't load into your data set to waste too much space. Alright, so that's append. I'll put a link in the YouTube video, so as you understand properly what append and merge queries are. So this is, let's say, January and February. So that is the data transformation, append and merge. Alright, so this is some transformations we've gone through. So let's go back to our data set. So if you check our data set, so that's all for the home. Let's go to transform. So in transform, there's also use first row as headers. There's transpose, reverse rows. You can also count rows. Let's do count rows. It's 271, so you can cancel it. So my rows are 271. When I want to count rows, I come to transform. There is data type, so there is test, and these are the various columns on the date. So there is data type, there is rename. I can rename a column. So rename a column, there are two ways. You can just double click on the column and you can rename it. So rename column, let me cancel it so as I don't forget. There is also sometimes detect data type. You can ask it to detect. There is replace value. If you remember, we learned that in the home. There was also replace values. There is fill. So sometimes, let's say this data set, there is empty spaces up here, but I know that, for instance, maybe this Australian Capital Territory is what should have been up here. You can just do fill up, click again, fill up rather. So why didn't work? Let me see, fill up. So normally that is used for filling data sets that are missing. You can do a fill up or fill down. Wondering why it's not working. Okay, so it just fills the parts that are down with no data set. I think there's something wrong with this. All right, so let's look at one very interesting data transformation, which is pivot and unpivot. So for instance, you see in our data set there is the dates in various columns. So for instance, each day is in a column. This data set is what we call in database a wide data. So it is very wide, like very wide. So every day is in a column. But the challenge with this is that if I have a data set like this, I'll not be able to load into the BI. Like when I load into the BI, I'll not be able to actually filter by date. That's what I mean. So because each date is pivoted on its own, it's like a pillar on its own. So first is on its own, 24th is on its own, 25th is on its own. It's good for the eye, you can see, but it's not good for databases. In database, we prefer what we call long tables. So I'm going to unpivot the date so as we can filter by date. So what I'll do is that I'll select 1, 2, 3, and 4. That is aside the date, and click on pivot other columns. Pay attention. So once I do that, see what has happened. So now I don't have a very long table. All my dates are now in one column and the value is in another column. And I'll rename this as date. So I've just unpivoted my data. Now instead of a wide table with each day in there, I have all the dates in there with the attributes by it. So that is the unpivot and the pivot. So as when we go, I can then be playing with date. Let's say date by the number of confirmed cases. So now let's also change this date from test into date. Wow, I get error. Why? Because my date is in the US, but my file is in UK. So I'll have to come here, just right click by the date, using local, date, and then I choose US because my local was Ghana, so it could not see the dates that were maybe above 12. So I now choose USA and then go back and select date. Right. So I've just unchecked the earlier date that I just did. Okay, let's go over this. I know you might be confused a little bit. Let me go over it again. So let me cancel all that I did. All right. So I had the date. When I checked the type, it was test, but the data type should be date because there are different data types: decimal, fixed value, whole number. I want it to be date. But when I chose date, because the data set is from Johns Hopkins and is in US, yet my PC is, or my file is in the UK format or the Ghana format, which brings You know, the other one is month date and this one is day month. So that error is causing it unable to change some of the dates. So what I do is that I go to date. So what I can do is just cancel this. No, I have to first choose the date so as I get access to transform. So I just right click by the date. There is using local. And there is, I choose date, and instead of Ghana I choose the United States. Right. Okay. So I get this error. So what I have to do is to just change the date again to date, which repeats the test step, but I remove the first one that I did, the first date change that I did, which was the change type 2, so as I get it correct. All right, I think we've done enough transformation for today. Maybe in the next video I'll do some other transformation. Transformation will take a chunk of your time when you are actually doing data analysis, so just be ready. So we can now close and apply. So I'm going to build a small dashboard for COVID-19. All right. So you go to close and you have close and apply. All right. So it will load into the BI. It's loading. So it's, because I created a date and I created January and February, all of them are loading into the BI plus the time series of the confirm. Whoa. Said what? Unable to connect to server. What's happening? Alright. Let me go to home, transform data. Close and apply. I have a lot of rows. I think the first time the internet was not connecting. Okay, so it's loaded now. So I have my date, financials, I have my January and February, and I have my time series data. That's what we just brought in. So quickly, let's play with some data sets. So let me, as usual, let's bring in the test box and put in COVID-19 data worldwide. All right. So let me do 16 or maybe 28. Let me change the background to blue and my test to white. So that's some color. We all love color, right? So let me just bring in a bar chart. Let me look at country, or let's first do date and value. The value is the confirmed cases. Let's even right click and rename it as confirmed cases. All right, think we did not change the confirmed cases. That's why you need to always change the date type. Let me go slowly so as you understand what I'm doing. So when you, let's say your transformation is not correct and you are here, the reason why I saw it was not correct is that the confirmed cases is a number, yet it is not showing sigma. Sigma shows that it is a number. So definitely I did not transform it properly. We can confirm that by going to data and choosing the time series and going to confirmed cases. You see that is a test. So to correct that, we'll go to transform data will send us back to the query editor, and then I'll select my query, select the confirmed cases because I changed the name in there. I'll change it to, okay, it's already a whole number here, so the problem is not here. So close and apply. Now all the over 80,000 rows would be loaded. PowerBi can handle as much as 20 million rows, like I said, even more, because I've worked with 36 million rows data before. So you see that now it is sigma. So it is date, but the confirmed case should be in values rather. So let me change this date to proper date, and let me change it to this, the clustered column chart rather. Okay, so we're able to see how the COVID-19 cases are going. I can intentionally bring in a slicer, and the slicer would then choose a country. So as I can see, country by country, so I choose Afghanistan, Albania, Algeria. So these are COVID-19 cases up to January 2021. Let me display the date. I wanted to show probably the last date. So it is, this is a card. If you remember our last, a card, this earliest date. When you right click here, you would see latest date. So that is what I want to show. So the latest date is Wednesday, 6th January 2021. So you have your COVID dashboard. Let me see Ghana, our own beloved country, Ghana. All right, so there you have it. So this was a pretty much long video, and I hope you'll be able to take your time, go through it. Let me know any questions that you have, and I'll be willing to answer them in the next video. So the name is Ebenezer Safuedu, and I'm a business strategy consultant and a data specialist. Hope you've learned. Bye.